So today, we're going to deconstruct the strategic mind of one of the most physically overwhelming forces in sports history, Shaquille O'Neal. But look, this isn't just a story about being big. It's about a calculated choice to weaponize a single massive advantage until the entire world had no other option but to just adapt to him. It's a blueprint for dominance that goes way, way beyond the basketball court. Okay, let's get into it.
It all kicks off with this one powerful idea. See, Shaq got it. He knew his path to greatness wasn't about mastering some fadeaway jumper or trying to play like the smaller, quicker guys. Nope. It was about amplifying his size to a ridiculous degree. The goal was never to be versatile. It was to be so physically overwhelming that the only way to stop him was to literally change the rules of the sport. And that single, counterintuitive thought, well, it's the key to everything that comes next.
All right, so here's the game plan. We're going to walk through this whole strategy in 6 parts. We'll start with the moment that basically announced his arrival, then dig into the relentless background that forged his mindset. We'll break down his core MDE philosophy, see the daily systems he used to make it real, and watch how he redefined what it means to be an athlete mogul. And then at the end, we'll figure out how you can apply this code to your own life.
So let's start with the big one, the event that wasn't really an accident. It was more like a declaration of war on the way things were. The moment he literally broke the game.
Just picture this for a second. It's 1992. This rookie, playing in his home state of New Jersey, goes up for a dunk, and you hear this unforgettable crack of reinforced glass. You feel the vibration, and then the entire 500-pound backboard, rim and all, just comes crashing down. This was not just brute force. It was a calculated act. While all the experts were asking for a refined big man with a soft touch, Shaq was sending a message written in shattered glass. A new kind of force is here, and it is not going to be polite.
And that, right there, is the core of his entire strategy. He just knew, instinctively, that you don't find real power by trying to imitate what everyone else does. No. You find it by owning your unique, God-given advantage until the world has no choice but to pay attention. He chose to weaponize mass itself, and that's the Shaq strategy. The idea that the one thing that makes you different isn't something to hide or apologize for, it is the most lethal weapon you have. But this philosophy, it wasn't born in that moment of destruction. It was forged years earlier in a much tougher place.
So let's rewind a bit. Let's look at his background and see how this all came together. Because before he was the Diesel, he was a kid from Newark, New Jersey, fighting for his identity and learning a really hard lesson that would define his entire life.
So he grew up on a military base in West Germany. And at the time, young Shaq was this 6'10" teenager who people saw as kind of clumsy, maybe even awkward. But his stepfather, an army sergeant named Philip Harrison, drilled this relentless discipline into him. The lesson was simple and honestly kind of brutal. Without aggression, your size doesn't make you a threat. It makes you a target. You'll just be the gentle giant everyone pushes around. So by the time he got to LSU in 1989, that mindset was locked in. He made a conscious choice to reject that soft, old-school center role. He was ready to prove the power of pure, unfiltered dominance.
And this is where it gets really interesting, right? You see this fundamental conflict. The world wanted the polite big man. The expectation was, hey, take it easy on the smaller guys, develop some finesse, blend in. But Shaq realized that finesse was just a cage for his potential. So he chose a totally different path, sovereign imposition, which is just a fancy way of saying own your size, stand in your own power, and make the entire game adapt to you. He wasn't going to fit in. And that choice, it led directly to his core operating system.
So out of all that friction from his early years, this powerful philosophy started to form. And it wasn't just a nickname or some marketing slogan, it was a complete mindset for how to operate in the world.
MDE, most dominant ever. This wasn't just a goal. It was a filter for every single decision he made. And it was built on this simple, powerful truth he'd figured out. Every time you try to blend in with the smaller players, every time you try to fix a weakness, you give up a piece of your greatest strength. The MDE philosophy was a total, unapologetic rejection of fitting in. And it all boils down to this one simple rule: make them adjust to you. Now that sounds simple, but think about it. In a world that is constantly telling us to be more well-rounded, to be good at everything, this is a radical idea. It's a flat-out rejection of that obsession with versatility if it comes at the cost of your main advantage. Instead of being pretty good at a bunch of things, Shaq decided to be so overwhelmingly great at one thing that nothing else even mattered. This led him to what we call radical positioning. It's this disciplined belief that your effectiveness is totally tied to the space you can completely own. For Shaq, the paint, that area right under the basket, That wasn't just a place on the court. It was his laboratory for the truth. He knew that if he could just get to his spot, if he could master that physical intimidation, the other team's strategy didn't matter. The world would have to play by his rules in his space.
Okay, so having a mindset is one thing, but how did he actually do it? A philosophy is nothing without execution. So let's look at the real, tangible, daily systems he built to turn this idea into an unstoppable force on the court. This is basically radical positioning in action. He had this thing we can call the deep seal protocol. He just wouldn't do it. He refused to start his moves from way out on the perimeter, where smaller, quicker guys had the advantage. Instead, he'd use his incredible base to just methodically force his way close to the basket, setting up a position so deep that the defender basically had to physically surrender. From there, a score wasn't just likely, it was gonna happen. Dominance was the only option left.
His system really had 3 core parts. First, the weight class audit. His training was always about him, about maximizing his unique advantage. It was all about mass and power, while everyone else was trying to get leaner. Second, rim breaking force. This was more than just being strong. It was about turning every single dunk into a strategic and psychological weapon that just crushed the other team's spirit. And third, kinetic mastery. This was a daily, conscious choice to reinforce dominance over finesse in everything he did, from practice drills all the way to game time.
Now here's where it gets truly remarkable. He took this exact same system and applied it far beyond the basketball court, creating a legacy that completely transformed the definition of what an athlete could be.
He developed what you could call the Mogul Model. He just systematically refused to follow that single, narrow path that's laid out for most athletes. He took that same principle of massive advantage, only this time it was his fame, his money, his brand, and he applied it with that same foundational relentlessness to business and ownership. He didn't just want to endorse products, he wanted to own the company. And wow, did it work. I mean, he was an early investor in companies like Google and Ring, not just because they looked promising, but because he saw how they could totally dominate their fields. He didn't just endorse Papa John's, he bought a ton of franchises and took a seat on the board, making sure he had real skin in the game. He made his wealth just as dominant and undeniable as his game. The on-court payoff for this whole strategy? 4 NBA championships. But the real payoff, the lasting legacy, was a complete and total transformation of what it even meant to be a big man, both on the court and off of it. At the end of the day, his ultimate legacy is the absolute destruction of the myth that being versatile is always better than being dominant. He replaced that idea with a new reality, that raw, overwhelming force, when you apply it strategically, is unstoppable. He proved that one single backboard-shattering dunk could be more powerful than 1,000 three-pointers, changing the physics and the psychology of the game itself. And this is where his story becomes a lesson for all of us. So what's the takeaway here? How can we translate the Shaq strategy into a framework for our own lives, our careers, our work?
Here's the big takeaway for you. Shaq's journey teaches us that our real power is tied to our ability to stop obsessively fixing our weaknesses and to start systematically unleashing our giants. I mean, how often are we told to become more well-rounded, to work on our weak spots? Shaq's story offers a powerful alternative. What if we took our single greatest, most unique strength and just amplified it until it became the one thing that defined us?
So I really want you to think about that. What is your shattered backboard moment just waiting to happen? What's that one unique advantage, a skill, a perspective, a part of your personality that you've been told to hold back, to soften up, to make a little more acceptable? What would happen if you stopped apologizing for it and actually started weaponizing it? Because ultimately, that's the final lesson here. When you decide to be relentless, you stop being a victim of the rules and you start becoming the master of the outcome. Dominance is a choice, and your greatest advantage isn't just a part of who you are, it's the very code for your greatness.